Hello students, in the last or third class of acid-base balance, we discuss acid-base disorders. Regulation of body pH. The maintenance of a stable hydrogen ion concentration within the cell as well as in the body fluid is essential to life, because the enzymatic activity and protein structure are frequently sensitive to pH. They can act or function in a particular pH. The pH of the extracellular fluid or plasma is normally maintained within a very narrow range of 7.35 to 7.45. We consider the plasma pH of 7.4 as the normal and an arterial pH of acidosis, whereas an pH of more than 7.45 is called alkalosis. So in our body, in the plasma, normal pH is from 7.35 to 7.45, beyond which the body condition compromise. So below 7.35 it is called acidosis, where body function in a compromised way up to a limit of 6.8. So from 6.8 to 7.35 it is the range for acidosis, beyond which or below 6.8 the body cannot survive and there is death. On the other way, the pH of more than 7.45 is called alkalosis, and again here body function compromise in alkalosis condition up to the limit of 7.8, beyond which again body cannot survive and there is death. So this is the zone of alkalosis and this is the zone of acidosis, and this is the normal pH from 7.35 to 7.45. Now the constancy of pH is threatened by the continuous production of acids in the body. These include both volatile acids like carbonic acid and non-volatile acid or fixed acids like sulfuric acid, phosphoric acid, which are end product of metabolism of food. The body pH is also affected by consumption of acids like vinegar or curd and alkali like lime. Acids are also lost from body in large amount in condition like vomiting, which can give rise to alkalosis. In diarrhea, alkali are lost and it gives rise to acidosis. So depending on the condition, the acid-base disorder are split into four categories: metabolic acidosis, metabolic alkalosis, respiratory acidosis, and respiratory alkalosis. And in addition, these disorders can occur in combination like metabolic acidosis with respiratory acidosis or metabolic acidosis and respiratory alkalosis. So we will discuss metabolic acidosis. Now when acids that are stronger than our hemoglobin and the other blood buffers are added to the blood, the metabolic acidosis is produced. Now that metabolic acidosis could be due to increased acid production like ketoacidosis, lactic acidosis, or it may be due to poisoning with methanol or salicylate. It may be due to increased acid consumption like intake of ammonium chloride. On the other hand, decrease in the filtration of acids as in condition like renal failure, or decrease in secretion of hydrogen ion by the renal tubules like in condition called renal tubular acidosis. So in this condition there is more and more retention of hydrogen ion in the blood, which may give rise to metabolic acidosis. And also increase in loss of alkali from the body, like in diarrhea, can also give rise to acidosis. So all these condition, increase production, increase acid consumption, decrease filtration or decrease secretion of hydrogen, even increase alkali may give rise to metabolic acidosis. Now what happens in metabolic acidosis? In metabolic acidosis, acids or hydrogen ion quickly increase in the blood as there is acidosis. Acid is more. Now these increase in hydrogen ion are buffered by our blood buffer. What are our blood buffer? Hemoglobin, protein and bicarbonate buffer. So these are the main blood buffers. Now when these bicarbonate buffer this hydrogen ion, it produces H2CO3. And this H2CO3 is converted to H2O and CO2. And this CO2 is rapidly excreted via the lungs and it is so fast without changing the arterial POCO2. Now this is called uncompensated metabolic acidosis. No compensation has yet done and this condition is called uncompensated metabolic acidosis, which causes excretion of carbon dioxide without changing the arterial PCO2. But uncompensated acidosis or alkalosis are not commonly seen because of our compensatory body systems which become active. The two important compensatory systems are respiratory compensation and renal compensation. So respiratory compensation is very quick, and as soon as metabolic acidosis begins, respiratory compensation is involved and the pH is kept from a large shift towards left, or it is the body try to maintain the pH towards normal. Now what happened in respiratory compensation? Increased hydrogen ion concentration in metabolic acidosis ultimately causes increase in rise of hydrogen ion in the cerebrospinal fluid. Now, increase in hydrogen concentration in CF in metabolic acidosis causes stimulation of respiration. So, it stimulates the respiratory center and there is increase in the ventilation or rate of respiration. So the hyperventilation or increase in respiration due to stimulation of respiratory center, which is again due to increased hydrogen ion concentration in CSF, causes decrease in alveolar POCO2 because increase in the rate of respiration causes more and more wash out of the carbon dioxide. So that causes decrease in the alveolar PCO2 and thus producing compensatory fall in blood hydrogen ion concentration. So if there is decrease in the POCO2, there is less production of H2CO3 which causes fall in hydrogen ion concentration. And this fall in hydrogen ion concentration restore the pH towards normal. So suppose from 7.4 due to acidosis it shifts towards a 6.9 or 6.8. Now by respiratory compensation, by increasing the rate of respiration, decreasing the hydrogen ion, body will compensate and the pH will shift from 6.9 to say the 7.2, 7.3. So this is the respiratory compensation for metabolic acidosis which tries to maintain the pH towards normal. Next is the respiratory compensation which is acting very fast quickly, but gradually renal compensation starts which is slow, but complete compensation occurs only after renal compensations are involved. So in metabolic acidosis, what happens? It is acidosis, increase in hydrogen ion in the blood or plasma. In this such condition, renal tubule secretes hydrogen ion into the tubular fluid in the tubular lumen. And it occurs in exchange of sodium ion concentration in the proximal tubules. As we already discussed, hydrogen secretion mainly occurs by hydrogen sodium antiport mechanism. And in this mechanism, for each hydrogen ion secreted, one sodium and one bicarbonate are reabsorbed to the blood. So in the presence of bicarbonate buffers, large amount of hydrogen can be secreted with large amount of bicarbonate to be reabsorbed. So as hydrogen is secreting, there is more and more reabsorption of bicarbonate in the basolateral side. And this increase in bicarbonate restore the blood pH towards the normal. And this is how the renal compensation for metabolic acidosis acts. In metabolic acidosis, the respiratory compensation tends to inhibit the renal response. So in metabolic acidosis, there are two types of compensation. One is respiratory compensation and another is renal compensation. In respiratory compensation, what happens? Increase in the ventilation or rate of respiration, whereas in the renal compensation, there is more and more reabsorption of the bicarbonate ion. Now, here it is said that in metabolic acidosis, respiratory compensation tends to inhibit the renal compensation. Now, respiratory compensation inhibits renal compensation by two different mechanisms. Firstly, the respiratory compensation increases ventilation, and increase in ventilation decreases PCO2. Now, due to decrease in the PCO2 causes decrease in hydrogen ion or acid secretion. Secondly, in metabolic acidosis, the filtered load of bicarbonate decreases. As it is in an acidotic condition, bicarbonate concentration decreases, so filtered load of bicarbonate also decreases. So ultimately the net effect in metabolic acidosis is mainly the respiratory compensation. The renal compensation is not so much, or it is inhibited by renal respiratory compensation. Next is the metabolic alkalosis. So in metabolic alkalosis, the plasma bicarbonate and pH both rise. So causes of metabolic alkalosis are like the loss of acids along with sodium chloride, like in vomiting condition or in diuretic therapy, and also in increased tubular hydrogen ion secretion. So if there is more and more hydrogen ion secretion in the tubules, there is decrease in the hydrogen ion concentration in the blood, and that can give rise to metabolic alkalosis. So in condition like hyperaldosteronism or Cushing syndrome, in this condition there is more and more reabsorption of sodium in the distal tubules, and that more and more reabsorption of the sodium causes more negative TEPD, transepithelial potential difference, which enhance hydrogen secretion from the renal tubular cells. And in such condition, it may give rise to even alkalosis by causing more and more hydrogen ion secretion. And of course, increased intake of alkali may also give rise to metabolic alkalosis, like in milk alkali syndrome. Compensation, how the body compensates for metabolic alkalosis. So first comes the respiratory compensation. Now, as the plasma bicarbonate concentration increases in metabolic alkalosis, the hydrogen ion concentration decreases. Now, as there is low in hydrogen ion concentration, the ventilation is decreased because the hydrogen ion concentration is less than normal, and as there is decrease in the ventilation or respiratory rate, there is arterial PCO2 rises because there is retention of the carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide remains in the alveoli, and it causes rise in the partial pressure of carbon dioxide. Now, this increase in the arterial PCO2 causes raises in the hydrogen ion concentration towards the normal, and thus it restores the normal pH. So in metabolic alkalosis, hydrogen ion concentration rises, which causes fall in the in metabolic alkalosis, bicarbonate concentration rises. It causes fall in hydrogen ion concentration, which decreases the ventilation. As there is decrease in the ventilation, there is retention of carbon dioxide, which can causes increase in the partial pressure of the carbon dioxide. Now, this rise in the PCO2 ultimately causes production of H2CO3, and there is rise in the hydrogen ion concentration. That's why the pH is restored towards the normal. Now, in metabolic alkalosis, as there is decrease in the ventilation, so this decrease in the ventilation also causes fall in arterial PO2. So decrease in the ventilation on one side causes retention of carbon dioxide. It also causes fall in arterial PO2. This fall in arterial PO2 or oxygen partial pressure, which stimulate respiration when it is below 60 mm mercury by carotid and aortic chemoreceptor mechanism. Okay. So, unlike in metabolic acidosis, where renal compensation is limited by the respiratory compensation, in metabolic alkalosis, respiratory compensation is limited. So in metabolic acidosis, it is mainly respiratory compensation, whereas in metabolic alkalosis, it is mainly the renal compensation than the respiratory compensation. Now the renal compensation for metabolic alkalosis. So in metabolic alkalosis, as plasma bicarbonate concentration rises, there is more filter load of bicarbonate, as bicarbonate concentration is more than the normal, that is of 24 milliequivalent per liter. Now, as there is more filtered load of bicarbonate, less hydrogen ions are secreted in the renal tubular lumen, and as there is less hydrogen ion secreted, less reabsorption of bicarbonate from the renal tubular cells. And when the bicarbonate concentration is more than 26 milliequivalent per liter, even that bicarbonate appear in the urine. So there is more and more loss of bicarbonate in the urine, and this tries to restore the pH towards normal. Now, the rise in PCO2 by decreasing ventilation inhibits the renal compensation. Now, here also, like metabolic acidosis, this respiratory compensation try to inhibit renal compensation by how? By facilitating hydrogen ion secretion without reabsorption of bicarbonate. But here it is relatively slight. So, we can conclude that in metabolic acidosis, renal compensation is of more importance, whereas in metabolic alkalosis, renal compensation is more important. Next is the respiratory acidosis. So, rise in arterial PCO2 due to decreased ventilation causes respiratory acidosis. So, there is retention of carbon dioxide, which causes increase in the rise of H2CO3, and this gives rise to respiratory acidosis. The carbon dioxide that is retained is in equilibrium with H2CO3 and that lower the pH. The causes are like damage to the respiratory center in the medulla oblongata or obstruction to the passage, airway passage in condition like pneumonia, emphysema, etc. can may also give rise to respiratory acidosis. Now, renal compensation for respiratory acidosis. In respiratory acidosis, there is increase in the PCO2 due to decrease in the ventilation, and more CO2 is available as there is increase in the PCO2, which form H2CO3. As there is more and more H2CO3, there is more hydrogen ion secreted from the renal tubular cells. So in respiratory acidosis, kidney secretes more H plus or acidic urine. Now along with removal of hydrogen ion from the tubular lumen, there is reabsorption of the bicarbonate from the basolateral side to the blood. So the bicarbonate is retained, thus the plasma bicarbonate level rises and the pH changes towards normal. So this is the renal compensation for respiratory acidosis. Whereas the respiratory alkalosis, what happened? It is caused by over-ventilation, increase in the ventilation, which is causes more and more washing or wash out of the carbon dioxide, and thus there is a decline in the partial pressure of carbon dioxide. The decreased carbon dioxide shifts the equilibrium to effectively lower the hydrogen ion and increase the pH, giving rise to respiratory alkalosis. Now causes are like ascent to high altitude, which increase the rate of ventilation, or voluntary hyperventilation. So voluntary hyperventilation may also cause respiratory alkalosis, as there is more and more washing out of carbon dioxide, decline in the PCO2, which may give rise to decrease in hydrogen ion concentration or respiratory alkalosis. The renal compensation to respiratory alkalosis. In respiratory alkalosis, this low PCO2 hinders the renal hydrogen ion secretion. So less PCO2, less H2CO3, less hydrogen ion secretion. The rate of hydrogen ion secretion and bicarbonate reabsorption decrease. Moreover, bicarbonation excretes through the renal tubular lumen, reducing the already low plasma bicarbonate. So in respiratory alkalosis, low PCO2, less H2CO3 formation, less hydrogen ion secretion, less bicarbonate reabsorption, and decreasing the SCO3 towards the and reducing the pH towards normal, thus lowering the plasma pH towards normal in respiratory alkalosis. So this is the acid-base normogram showing changes in the pH. So this is the normal on the x-axis. These are the changes in the pH. This is the normal pH of 7.4. Shifting towards the left, 7.3, 7.2, it is acidosis, and shifting towards right, 7.5, 7.6, it is alkalosis. So in the x-axis, it is the pH, whereas in the y-axis, it is the arterial plasma bicarbonate concentration. So normal bicarbonate concentration 24 milliequivalent per liter. So shifting up, increase in the bicarbonate concentration give rise to retention, increase in the bicarbonate concentration, and here there is decrease in the bicarbonate concentration. Whereas these curved lines are showing the partial pressure of carbon dioxide. So normal partial pressure of carbon dioxide PCO2 is 40 milliequivalent 40 millimeter of mercury. Here it is decreasing, whereas here it is rising in the PCO2 concentration. Now normally the pH is, when the pH is 7.4, it is normal, bicarbonate 24 milliequivalent, PCO2 is 40 millimeter of mercury. Now in acidosis, pH shifts towards the left, and if the bicarbonate concentration decreases, it is metabolic acidosis. If the bicarbonate concentration remains same, whereas partial pressure of PCO2 rises, it is respiratory acidosis. When shifting towards right of the pH, it is alkalosis. When the bicarbonate concentration increases, it is metabolic alkalosis, and when the PCO2 decreases, it is respiratory alkalosis. So this is in the acute condition, whereas in chronic condition, in the chronic respiratory acidosis or the chronic respiratory acidosis, and in the chronic respiratory alkalosis, where happen in the chronic respiratory acidosis from acute respiratory acidosis, bicarbonate concentration is increasing and pH is moving towards normal, whereas in chronic alkalosis the bicarbonate concentration decreasing and again pH is shifting towards the normals, and these occur because of compensatory mechanisms. How do we detect acid-base disorder in day-to-day practice? So in day-to-day practice, to detect acid-base disorder, we do arterial blood gas analysis. We take arterial blood, measure the pH of that blood, and to another important parameter, one is the bicarbonate concentration, and third is the partial pressure of carbon dioxide. So as we already shown, we first detect what is the pH. So if the pH is less than 7.4, we consider it as acidosis. If the pH is more than 7.4, it is alkalosis, and the pH is 7.4, it is normal condition. Okay, so suppose the pH is less than 7.4, so it might be acidosis. Then we have to look for two important parameters. One is the bicarbonate concentration and another is the partial pressure of carbon dioxide. If the bicarbonate is less than normal, here less than 24 milliequivalent, then it is metabolic acidosis. Or if the bicarbonate remain normal limit but the PCO2 increase, then it is respiratory acidosis. Whether it is metabolic or respiratory acidosis, then we have to check for compensation, whether it is compensated, and it has another calculation for compensation. We are not going in details. So on the other hand, if the pH is more than 7.4, it is alkalosis. Again, on the same way, you have to check for the carbon dioxide, HCO3 and the PCO2. If it is HCO3 more than 24, it is metabolic alkalosis, or if it is PCO2 less than normal or 40 milliliter of mercury, then it is respiratory alkalosis. So this is how we detect acid-base disorder. Next, a Sigurd-Anderson curve normogram. I am not going to discuss this. Just show it enables quick calculation. Just to show you that it enables quick calculation for requirement of pH correction in clinical situation by several parameters like the standard bicarbonate, the buffer base, and the base excess. So this is called Sigurd-Anderson curve normogram, used for clinical situation. What is the pH, how we can correct that pH for that purpose. Next is the anion gap. Now the plasma anion gap is the total concentration of anions excluding bicarbonated chloride that are present in the plasma. It represents the total plasma concentration of anions like albumin, phosphate, sulfate, and other organic acids. So if the anion gap is more, it's suggesting these anions are more: albumin, phosphate, sulfate, and other organic acids. It can be calculated by subtracting the concentration of bicarbonated chloride from the total concentration of anions. Since sodium is the predominant cations in the plasma, concentration of potassium, calcium, magnesium are negligible to the sodium of 140 and 4, like that. So the formula of anion gap is calculated by the plasma sodium. So we are considering only the sodium, other cations are of negligible, minus the plasma bicarbonate and chloride, and normally it is 12 plus minus 4, so 10 to 14 milliequivalent per liter is the normal anion gap. If there is high anion gap, that means uncalculated anions like acetoacetic acid, lactic acid, organic acid, these are increased, and decrease excretion of sulfate, phosphate of organic acid. The normal anion gap acidosis, when there is acidosis, we have two types: normal anion gap acidosis or high anion gap acidosis. If it is high anion gap acidosis, there is more production of acid like acetoacetic acid, lactic acid, organic acid. If the anion gap is normal, that is suggests there is hyperchloremic acidosis. That's why this difference remain normal in normal anion gap acidosis. And that is all about acid-base disorders. Hope you enjoyed, and thank you for your patience hearing.